We'll be announcing our Twitter handles at the end of the show. You can find more from. Follow me on OnlyFans/
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new BetaCast. Welcome again to our fifth episode, where we are going to speak about what can pandemic teach us about the smart cities actions. And now we have three really interesting guests. We have Char, that is the co-founder and CEO of duckt. We have Rado, that is the founder of Holler.live, and we have Bert, the CEO of Geckomatics. I'll ask them to do a small presentation about who they are, what their project's about. Then we move to asking the right questions to you guys about the COVID and everything that's going on the smart cities and mobility. So, Bart, do you want to go first here? Your microphone is muted.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I have to unmute it. So my name is Bert. Thanks for having me tonight. I'm calling in from Belgium. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Geckomatics, and we are in the artificial intelligence space. What we actually do is we make digital twins of cities by using mobile cameras, which we then analyze to make maps and inventories of all kinds of object trees, traffic signs, whatever you want. We can put it on a map for you.
Thank you so much. Oh, Rado, you want to go next?
Thank you, Jose. As you said, I'm Rado. I'm the founder and CEO of Holler.live. In short, we enable organizations to open dedicated real-time channels that allow them to see how their stakeholders feel at any point in the customer journey. And we believe, especially in a situation like this, communication is key. Looking forward to our discussion.
Thank you. I'm also looking forward to that. So now, Char, please.
Yeah, hi everyone. Nice meeting you again after our Lisbon trip together. I'm Çağrı. I'm from Istanbul. I'm in Istanbul right now. I am the co-founder and CEO of duckt. And what we do is we develop world's first universal, dedicated and smart infrastructure for micromobility.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Three really interesting entrepreneurs here speak about this topic that is mobility and smart cities. So let's go to the first kind of question. Okay, I want to know your opinion about everything that's going on in the world about COVID-19, and especially how did this pandemic influence, in your opinion, the smart cities and mobility environment in general. Maybe you, Char, you go first.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's an incubator for everything that's happening in the world. There is so much bad news that's running around right now. Everybody's life is affected. All the business life is affected. There's going to be major shifts. It's also kickstarting a lot of things that were waiting in our life. So I think if you're looking for a silver lining here, especially in terms of urban life, I think urban mobility is going to have a major effect on terms of the things that were waiting to change, didn't have enough push to change until this point. I think that's going to be the first topic. But I think other than that, I will leave it for the rest of our conversation.
Bert?
Yeah, I think one thing that everybody is learning now, and that's very obvious also tonight since we're here, is that we are going to digitize a lot more. Like all of a sudden, a lot of companies are discovering the possibilities of remote meeting, of digitizing stuff instead of physically going to spaces. We all discovered Zoom, which is exploding over the internet, and I think that that's a very interesting evolution. Of course, we are all tech entrepreneurs, so this is our bread and butter. But I think that the digital revolution is getting like a new dimension after this crisis. So yeah, I think that's a silver lining in this whole pandemic that we're going through.
Rado.
Just as Bert says, whilst we need to be thankful for all the professionals that are working hard and taking risks right now to keep us safe and help us overcome this global crisis. At the same time, all the rest of us have the time to think, explore new ideas, learn perhaps new technologies in the case of many companies. And regardless of how difficult it is during and after this pandemic is over, uh, what is certain already is that more or less all the people in all the companies will have a fresh perspective, and hopefully this can lead to a lot of new and exciting opportunities, especially for us that are in the space of enabling services thanks to the new technologies out there.
When all of this started, what was the first thing that you thought, like in terms of your business, of course, especially in terms of this ecosystem? What was the first thing that came into your mind, and you think to yourself, so I must do this, I must do it now?
Well, the very first thing was, again, this is a biased opinion, of course, but from my point of view, especially in situations like this, it really helps to have both the technology and culture of feedback to see exactly how are your employees or your customers or your colleagues feeling on a day-to-day basis, and how good it would have done to have more companies use either our tool or something similar. Because apart from the huge economic and health impact, I would dare say that the panic that arose did maybe significantly a lot of harm as well. And the way you combat panic and the unknown is by having good communication. Um, the first thing that we did is we started a campaign to provide free access to our system to HR professionals to enable them to switch this always on real time communication channel that would enable all the employees with a swipe of their finger to indicate how safe they feel, how do they react to the measures taken by the company, do they feel okay working from home, anything like that, in order to combat the
Yeah.
risks and negatives of the miscommunication.
Yeah. What about you, Char? Because your solution is a little bit different here. So, what was the first thing that came into your mind? Because from what I understood from studying your project, people need to be outside and be using the scooters and so on. So, what was the first thing that came into your mind? Did you thought, so I need to do a step back and then do 2 steps forward, or?
I mean, we never had another pandemic in our lives, so it's a first time for all of us. So I think it phases you. So there's like phases that you follow. First thing is that you look internally. So as all the startups that would do, we look into our burn rate, you rearrange your runway, you check with your staff. As Rado said, I totally agree. You be sure about the safety of your people, your clients, everybody around you, and then you start looking externally. And in that phase, of course, at the moment, there's not many people out, but the ones that are out, I want to remind you that are all the people that are doing short distance travels. I mean, even without this happening, around 70 to 80% of all the travels that were happening inside the urban areas were all shorter than 15-kilometer distance. It's right inside the micromobility alley. And at the moment, with this pandemic, as we can see it, where this is going is that the personal mobility solutions, affordable personal mobility solutions that is in easy access to anybody, will be in high demand. Because I think, especially in public transportation, there will be some step back from people, because, as you know, it's a little bit more dense. And for shared mobility, I mean, I know technology will catch up and find ways for people to share stuff again with clear conscience. But until then, starting from first day when we're out, the first thing that you're going to run for any type of mobility is going to be micromobility. So what we're doing right now about that is that we're using this extra time that we have, and we're being as agile and as creative as a startup can be. And we came up with some really nice business models based on what we have and what we were working on. Actually, some of them that we started working before the COVID crisis, which turns out that we were right. So we will continue on applying those.
Nice, really nice. That's interesting.
Can I add something?
Yeah, of course.
In terms of the space and what people are doing, recently I came across We All Move. It's a hashtag. It's combined. Anybody who's listening, I would love them to go and check and tell the people they know. Anybody who's in micromobility space are sharing whatever they can in that platform for people who need mobility solutions as fast as possible. I think that's a good platform that needs to be shared.
Oh, nice. Thank you for that. So Bert, you are working with an AI technology, and everybody is saying that we need AI more and more to define our strategy to the future. So how do you see all of this happening? And when this happens, how did you adapt your product, if you adapt your product at all?
Yeah, well, I totally agree with what Rado said, that people need a lot of communication and information. And information is, of course, all what Geckomatics is about, because what we do is we provide cities information about assets, physical assets that are out in the public space. And actually, I see a spike in interest for remote information instead of people going on locations and on sites to check out stuff. They now see value in checking out stuff from their desktop. So in a sense, for us, it's like a confirmation of what we do is quite valuable, because people can just go to any place virtually from their desktop and just check about assets there, trees, whatever is there that they're interested in. They can make measurements. They can manage their assets. So that's quite something that I see that's spiking in interest. But I also agree with what Chağrı said about we're all entrepreneurs and we are all resilient. We're used to adapting ourselves, and we're need to find a way. Generally speaking, if you're an entrepreneur, you never find excuses. You find a way.
Exactly.
And I see that happening, not just among entrepreneurs, but also among the general population. There's a big shortage of face masks. So I see a lot of people taking steps to create their own or do whatever they can to do it. And I think a crisis is a good time to reflect and to think about what really matters. And I think a lot of people are finding novel ways to do things that they used to do. So I think the world will come out of the crisis as a better place, notwithstanding, of course, all the casualties. But I see a lot of things that are evolving in a good way as well. So that's the kind of stuff that I see happen, and it's good.
Nice. So now I have a question. That is, on your perspective, on your countries, what you have seen around there, which are the technologies / solutions, if you want, that will have the biggest influence when fighting this COVID-19? So, if some of these amazing solutions are coming out right there. So, do you know any of use cases of them? So, let's talk a little bit of what is in the market, and if you know something out there, like Çağrı just said, that is like a group. I think it was a group or a platform where people share. So, we saw a lot of initiatives. So, let's talk a little bit about them. So, Rado, on your country, what's going on?
Well, it's inspiring to see how quickly both the private sector and the public sector has been able to move once there's been such a serious threat that encompasses all of us. And you know, speaking of the Netherlands, the government has shown that it can move real quick when it needs to. Various specialized agencies, such as the ones that promote and help the development of small and medium-sized business, even the banks, not to speak, of course, of all the health professionals, have been really quick to react. When it comes to adoption of new technologies and solutions, yeah, obviously the big winners are, Microsoft Teams, Zoom, etc. But in short, as Bert and Çağrı both said, this reset button that's been hit, it is evidently helping all of us to reconsider and kind of a lot of the world and a lot of industries and a lot of especially successful big companies were operating more or less with a significant amount of inertia, and that is now gone. So the opportunity to rethink some processes is really great, and we can see that by the amount of new conversations that we're starting around these days. And when it comes to some specific initiative, I wouldn't single out any in particular, but even speaking of the volunteers that go out there and carry food to those who need it, that's good to see.
Nice. Char, what do you see in your hand? Your microphone is muted. Sorry.
Well, in terms of, I was saying, in terms of evaluating what's ahead of us, is that to understand the logic behind it. So when we're talking about data for so many years now, that data is important. We need to understand why it's important. Data is important because it helps us understand behavior. So far, we use this ability of data to create business opportunities. But we are in the turn of events where we're going to need to understand behavior to understand the behavioral change, not to create businesses around it. So the data that we're going to collect right after pandemic about the cities are going to be crucial, because until now, during the crisis period, it shows that a lot of things are changing. Let's think about the public space, for example. Look outside your window the next time that you're looking out, which we're doing so often lately, right? Look outside your window, you're going to see the empty space, all that empty space that's all reserved for cars that are not in use right now. And I think that's an opportunity. So when we're going back to the life, the most crucial ones are going to be ones repurposing these things. And since we're talking urban life, we're talking mobility, these are all the subjects that are coming up over and over again. But let me give you another perspective. What do you think is going to happen to the cinema saloons? Yeah. Right? I mean, it was already having a huge hit with digitalizing, and now this. So I think there's going to be so many of these for several years now, for like 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. In educational system, everybody was trying to digitalize everything, right? They were trying to have remote lessons and this and that, and it was taking years. And what happened? In weeks, the whole country changed their educational system, because this is putting things into a fast track. So what happens when you put things into fast track to use the public space that we already have, that we didn't use? So I'm going to be looking in that space. Of course, I don't have the silver key right now to say, like, I think this is going to change the world with the technology, but I know what we will be doing. I think we will focus on trying to keep the people safe in their travels. I think what we did so far is helping that a lot, because it is helping with the personal mobility. We are doing a lot with the business model right now, the major shifts. What we do is that mainly we focus on selling our services, selling our products until now, which we will continue on doing for people who need that. But we're also looking into the space, especially in EU, with funds, with governmental associations that are supporting a green change for the European cities. And we perfectly fit to that. So why not, instead of just creating a charging station, why not create an infrastructure where it helps people to liberate their mobility?
Yeah.
So that's going to be our focus for the next couple of months. And I think the data that we're collecting around this time, which we are following right now, is going to be a key to that.
Nice, really nice perspective that you have there. So, Bert, listening to both of them, the first thing that came to my mind is so many opportunities, so many spin-offs that are going to come out from so many companies. So,
it seems so, yeah.
Do you have any?
One of the things that I keep hearing is data. A lot, of course, we are in the world of data, but one of the most obvious effects, especially in the beginning of the crisis, was the fact that everybody was talking about curves all day long. Like you couldn't open a newspaper without seeing statistics and curves. For many people, I think that's a new world of data and insights that's opening up.
Yeah.
Of course, we are in data science and we have AI companies, and for us this is so clear cut. But I think it kind of paves the way for a lot of organizations, public organizations and private organizations, to be more familiar with working data driven. And that's quite interesting because we all deliver a lot of data. It's not always obvious for let's say for the market.
Yeah.
What the value of this data is. Well, I think everybody now fully understands how important data is. Everybody is watching the new figures from their country.
Yeah,
is it going up or down every day? So that's quite interesting.
Sorry to interrupt. Let me just make another question, because if you are using so much data, when this started, did you look for new data to measure or to collect?
For us, it's nothing new, but it hasn't always been obvious for let's say for our market what the value is. I mean, those who know and those who were working with data, it wasn't too difficult to convince them. But I see now that like a lot in our space, in the smart city space, you often have to convince politicians because they are the decision makers. They're not the people in the field, and the politicians often do not work with too much data, and they don't see the value. But now it's like easier to make them see the value of, hey, if you have this kind of insight, if you have this kind of data of what's going on in your city, that's quite valuable to you. So it might be easier to make them listen to what you have to offer. And that's quite interesting to see that happen.
Thank you. So let's go to a question that popped up from Stealing Video. That duckt.app said it was a nice question. How useful and relevant do you think your current solutions will be when urban life goes back to normality? Maybe, hopefully, with a new social or personal mindset. So Rado, you want to go first here? And by normality, he just said that assuming normality as the new, as the end of isolation. So not the continuum of the current status of things in urban life. Rado.
That's a good clarification, because I dare say the biggest upcoming threat is if we try to simply resume everything as it was before the crisis, right?
Yeah.
That would have been a huge wasted opportunity. And I can give you specific examples using only the three technologies from my fellow guests here and colleagues. Let's imagine that you use Geckomatics to map out your city and identify the specific places where you could put a duct-powered personal mobility, scooters, charging stations, etc. Where our technology would have a part to play is by putting a simple QR code or something similar, basically just a link at the right place right there. You could enable people to react to this and immediately share their opinion of this. Because at the end of the day, our expectation is that there will be a very much increased level of sensitivity when it comes to the public mind once the quarantine is over. Will people be afraid to ride the bus? Will they feel that they would like a hand sanitizer in the bus, for example, or on the bus stop? Would they love to see more personal mobility options in their city? Do they feel that there are particular points in the city where people congregate, where maybe think something needs to be done to discourage this behavior? As Chagri said, we will need to pay close attention to the behavior, because no matter what governments and companies choose to do, we as people, we have changed, and this will become evident quite quickly.
And even that, like you were saying, and you're completely right here, I agree with you. Like we said, because of the governments, the politicians will have a decision here. This will put pressure there. If you go there with the data, this will put pressure on them, because you will say they want this. So that's a really nice point here.
That's the thing about data. Sorry, just to jump in real quick.
Yeah, of course.
You can collect data passively, or you can let your customers, employees, or citizens participate actively. And the latter, we believe, is the better way to go, to involve the public. People don't want to feel passive about this. Everybody has an opinion.
So Bert, do you have an opinion here you would like to share?
Yes, actually, well put by Rado. I think yes, there's a new mindset that will aggregate data from all kinds of sources, and I fully agree that there is a lot of opportunity in communicating with the population in a broader sense, like for example, in Belgium, there's a daily communication by authorities about the crisis, and it's quite important for people. Like if people would not have this line of communication, I think they would revolt in the streets. It's that simple. So I think there's an important lesson to be learned here, and I fully agree that you have to involve people. You like collect data actively and make that part of your decision. The technology is there. I think the cultural mindset is there. So please go ahead and collect data.
Sure.
Yeah. Long story short, we have always been the black swan of any startup activity, right? Because we're the hardware people. The software is the hot topic. But then again, we were always the ones that were invited to all of these events, because, I mean, all the apps need to work in a cell phone, right? So we see ourselves kind of like the cell phone for micromobility in that sense. And I think when we're enabling micromobility for more people in a efficient way, which will be a really hot topic after the pandemic, we're going to count every dollar, right? And in efficiency sense, in micromobility, I think they're spending like around 60% of their costs. The operators are using it for operation and charging only. I mean, if you put that to 10% as a hardware, I think that's going to be something that everybody's going to need. But as Rado said, we are the cell phone for micromobility. Other than cost efficiency, other than personal liberation for mobility, there's going to be other things that are going to be added on duct stations, because we're going to have a high resolution. I mean, as we've been talking about data, right now, for example, when we're collecting air quality data for a city, the resolution is not so high. You know, you think of like an area and you consider what is or close to as a value. But imagine being able to have a high resolution data collective capability around the city that solves micromobility, that solves cost efficiency, that solves mobility. I mean, that's going to be what we're going to be focusing, because I think it's just going to get better by adding more stuff in the future.
Thank you. So you all participated in the SOL program, and you are all doing pilots with the partners of the program. Tell me, did this COVID influence those pilots? And if so, in what way? Did it change anything? How everything is going on?
Yeah, I'll jump in here. Yeah, it heavily influenced our pilots because basically we're grounded and we were supposed to fly into Lisbon a couple of weeks ago to create a map for the pilot project. It's just
I was
postponed.
supposed to be in Zurich today.
Oh yeah, so yeah, I think we're all in the same boat. Like we want to be in places, but we just can't be there. But we'll go to Lisbon in a couple of weeks. The way it is now, it looks like I could be there second week of May. But apart from that, we've of course worked on our technology. We have actually I've made quite some sales last couple of weeks, so business is actually going good. I'm hiring people.
Nice, congratulations.
But yeah, thanks. But in terms of the pilots, yes, it's just pushed back in the agenda. We'll definitely do it. We just don't know for sure when yet, but yeah, it's going to happen. That's the thing about being a startup. Like you just make things happen, right? No matter what. That's the mindset. So yeah, so we'll go ahead with it.
Exactly. Char, how's your pilot going?
I mean, when you start a project, you make steps for it to work, and then everybody has their responsibilities and everything. I just want to take this opportunity to thank Sol Mobility organization and BetaE, because I mean, since the start, these guys, I mean, they made a great organization. Everything was so clear. Every step we knew where we're going next. Even in these crises, I know that they didn't plan to go through pandemic with us, but they're handling it pretty well. I mean, we're still like, I think a week ago or so, we were sitting together in a Zoom meeting with almost all the important corporates and governments in a Zoom meeting with them, talking about our pilots. During a crisis, I think that's a luxury. Because there is priorities and everybody needs to understand that. But other than that, anything that we can do indoors, anything that we can do online, that's all going on. Anything that we're going to do on the street that is waiting for a sunny, beautiful summer day. And yeah, I think that's more than enough for a pilot. And I think during these periods, especially businesses that are creating value for the city, either in mobility or in any other sense, is going to just get stronger. And these pilots, when the time comes, are going to be proof of that, because we're keeping them alive. We're taking them somewhere. And I might even consider like it might just even get bigger when the time comes, because the need is more for the change right now. And when you have this opportunity in hand, why not just go bigger?
Rado, how's your pilot going? Tell me, what was your perspective?
Most of the pilots we were so blessed to get thanks to the Sol Mobility program, ranging from public transportation in Lisbon to the parking company, etc., are logically enough put on hold because there is nobody riding the bus or parking the car. However, as Jagri said, I believe that once we're over the slope, once we're over the mountain, we'll be in a position to provide even more value to our partners because, as I said, people will have a higher need to express themselves and will have an extra sensitivity to the environment and services they consume. They'll have a lot to say. At the same time, the time we would have dedicated to servicing these pilots, we can now dedicate to servicing our current clients. Many of them are using our technology to see on a daily basis how their employees feel in the environment from working from home, how they react to the policies from their employers. And that is very useful as well to notice.
Nice. Really nice. So, the last two questions. We have a question from Daniela. Thank you for making questions. If citizens' behavior changes deeply in the near future, in the post-pandemic city, how may it impact your solution? Do you foresee opportunities business-wise? I think that some of you, like Charles said, that there will be maybe a bigger market after all of this.
Let me take that.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean,
So, yeah.
Yeah. Just imagine a day, right? There's an infrastructure in your city that you can dock, lock, and charge any type of micromobility vehicle, and that's in access to anywhere that you need it. Wouldn't you buy your own micromobility vehicle and then use that? I mean, it's a easy access vehicle. It is more affordable than any other choice. It's a private use vehicle, and especially if it's an electric one, it will be charged all the time. It will be locked and safe, waiting for you. I think that's a huge market that is waiting to burst.
Yeah.
It is not there yet because that accessibility is not existent. I think we're gonna have a chance to make that available in many cities, starting in Lisbon soon, and several other EU cities that we're in conversation with. Will just trigger more. I was keep on saying that word. I really like that word. It's more liberating the mobility. Public transportation, although it is extremely helpful, it is becoming inefficient in a way. And this crisis will trigger more trigger more problems in that sector. I mean, UN was saying around 60-70% of the population of the world will be in cities. I think that's going to change a little bit after this. I think more people will leave the central areas, and then public transportation might become less efficient since less people choosing that, and this liberation of mobility might become a big deal.
Yeah. And makes completely sense. Bert, do you have a perspective here? So you think that the market will be bigger after all of this?
Yeah, I think there's two things. There's the short-term perspective, like everybody is still in shock, of course, right now, and that's probably going to be so for the next coming year or whatever. But there's also going to be the long-term effect, and as Çağrı just said, around 70% of people are projected to live in cities. So you better have your city organized as well as you can. So that's definitely going to be something that's also going to play a role. Nobody knows what's going to happen, so I'm not going to pretend here that I have my perfect predictions of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I think if there's one thing that we learned, that is for sure, that we are going to have to organize things more efficiently in terms of economics, because the economy will take a hit. There's no way around it. We're going to as a population, we're going to become poorer over the next couple of years. So we better make the best use of the resources we have. And I think companies that are able to help governments and other companies become more efficient in terms of resource use, I think those are going to thrive.
Yeah, because like you said, I'm so happy to hear your opinions about Sol. It's all about cooperation. So it's all about the cooperation between the organization, you guys, and the corporations, to make sure that they keep this innovation going and going forward. To make sure that after this, we'll have solutions adapted to our new reality. I completely agree with you. Rado, do you want to give your opinion here about your product?
Thank you. Well, as Bert said, it's impossible to predict exactly what will happen, but at the same time, it's a pretty safe bet that a lot of things will need to change. On the one hand, institutions and businesses will introduce new policies or services or products. On the other, consumers and citizens will have different expectations and an increased need of security, let's say. The economic toll will be probably severe. Cost-cutting measures will be taken. But throughout all of this, we at Holler Live hope to be in a position to help bridge the gap in the dialogue between these groups of people, because the ones that win big will be the ones that make the changes in concert with their customers,
Yeah.
not out of the blue. So looking forward to enabling pretty much any type of company to keep a close finger on the pulse of the opinion of their customers.
Thank you so much, and thank you to the guests for being here.
Can I still add something?
Yeah,
because one of the things that also strikes me during this crisis is that there is a attitude shift towards privacy. Governments are collecting lots of data. It's been mentioned a lot tonight. There are apps being made for social distancing. There are probably going to be a lot of technologies that are going to be used for our own good, whatever that may mean. So there's a thin line that some governments might cross here. And I think that companies that are ethical in this respect, that have a emphasis on responsible behavior towards data and personal privacy, I think those companies might actually come out ahead as well. That's definitely something that we should.
That's going to be really hard, isn't it?
Yes,
because
I mean,
we're
the
talking
on Zoom here. Yes, we're talking on Zoom here, which is one of the companies that was that is now being blacklisted by a lot of companies because of their negligent attitude towards privacy.
Because imagine if there was an app telling you any corona sickness possibilities around you, but was asking you to collect your data, you would click yes so fast right now.
Yeah, I mean,
it will surprise yourself 1 month ago. So I think,
exactly.
Google,
so we have to be careful there.
Yeah, like Google Maps already, like if you don't switch off, Google Maps already know every places that you were. So and now we just hear that Google and Apple are working together to come out with a solution for this social system. But here's the thing: I believe in privacy, and I believe that there will be some governments that will push that agenda. Of course, Bert is completely right, and we must keep paying attention to this. This is a really good warning to end this conversation, too, because it's in the end of the day, it's us that will say what's ethical and what's not, and we'll push our agenda, and we are strong as a cooperation society or ecosystem, if you want to call it.
As Chagri said, it's important to give the choice to the people. As long as the people know what the trade-offs are and are involved in the process, then so be it.
Yeah, but that's a really tricky way of saying what people know. They know, like when they accepted the Facebook terms, just to speak a little, when they accepted, they didn't know that actually nobody knows, not even the managers of the company know what their data was using for. They discover it, so it's kind of tricky.
That's where the ethics comes in play. That ethical companies will do their best to make it clear to the people what they're agreeing to and why their data is important and how it's going to be used.
Charlie, you were saying something?
I was agreeing him on that, and I'm let me add that also. I think honesty is going to be an interesting value now, which wasn't measured before.
You're going to measure honesty. That's
And we're
funny.
going to start measuring honesty, because opening data also brings another issues with them. How correct your data is. And yeah, so we're going to see a couple of cases on that too, I guess.
So with this, we end this week podcast. Thank you so much for the guests for being here, to Char, to Bert, and to Rado. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, José.
It was a pleasure to be here, and take care, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So guys, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Like every YouTuber said, like and subscribe. And I hope to see you next week. We're going to have a podcast every week. As you know, we maybe will change the hour of the podcast, just for you to be aware. We're going to try new hours. We're going to do different formats. Just keep on giving us your feedback. Go to the comments after the video. Don't forget to leave your like. It's really important. Subscribe. Go to the comments. Write some comments there of what you want to see, a bigger podcast, a smaller podcast. You choose. We are here to do all of this just for you guys, to speak with you and have your feedback in return. Thank you so much for your time, and everyone, thank you to the guests, and we see you next week. Bye.
Stay safe.
Stay safe.
Cheers.